One of my TikToks about porn addiction went viral, people got mad in the comments, and today we're going to look at it. So to start off, here is the TikTok itself, which reached a lot of people.
Porn makes men weak and less masculine, and here's why. When you use porn, you're smacking down your sexual desire every time it starts arising. Feel a little bit of desire, a tinge of horniness? Immediately jump on that and inject hyper-stimulating stuff into your eyeballs. Your sexual desire is at the very core of your masculinity. And by using porn habitually, you're never letting it develop and grow. You're never learning to be comfortable with that desire, and you're never letting it grow to the point where you can confidently express it and share it with someone else. With your porn habit, you're choking out your masculinity at its root. Follow me to learn how to quit for good.
Now, of course, this is TikTok. The message is meant to ruffle some feathers. It's meant to be a wake-up call, hopefully. And it's no wonder that people reacted to it in the comments. But what's interesting is that in the reactions, people really reveal a lot of the misconceptions that they have around porn and porn addiction. And it's sometimes very informative, sometimes a little amusing. So I thought, let's go through it. Here are the 12 biggest misconceptions that came up in the comments repeatedly. First and foremost, the very top one, the most common one, is that people confuse sex with porn and porn with sex. So it's comments saying, no, but I've heard, or some experts say that sex is healthy and therefore porn must be healthy. Or people thinking that what I'm saying is that nobody should have sex ever. Or even people straight up stating that this is the same as sex. So this was surprising to me as well in the beginning, but now I've come to realize that this is actually very common. A lot of people can't really make a distinction between porn and sex and masturbation in their minds. This is all just like melded into one thing. And so just to clarify, when I say that porn addiction is a problem and that you're better off not watching porn, I'm not saying that sex is bad and that you shouldn't have sex. In fact, if anything, I would say the opposite. Real sex in the flesh with another person, as long as it's safe, sane, and consensual and all that, is important. It's important for your well-being. For most humans, obviously there's always exceptions, but for most humans, this is something that you have a drive, a need for, and if it's lacking in your life, it's going to make you, feel less good, it's going to make you less happy, and so on. So yes, having a good sex life is healthy, and that's completely separate from porn. And if you're wondering about how sex and porn are different, here's an analogy. Imagine that you're really good at playing Need for Speed with a gamepad. So you're really good at throwing a race car around these racetracks, in third person with the gamepad. What if we take you with all those skills and put you in a real race car in a race? How well do you think you'll fare? Suddenly it's a real car, it's a different perspective, and you have physics and G-forces and stuff to contend with. Also, you have adrenaline and exhaustion and so on. Real sex is different from porn in much the same way that driving a real race car is different from playing Need for Speed. Sure, on the surface you could say, well, generally they're the same thing, but the differences make all the difference. Next up, number 2, we have a lot of confusion about masculinity. So here's the main misconception about this that I think we can clear up right away. An absence of masculinity is not femininity. And if you're a guy and you're hesitating about that, is that true? Think about it like this. An absence of femininity is not masculinity. Now, when you look around the manosphere and stuff, you can see a lot of guys are very confused about this. And it seems a lot of people don't have an experience of this, that these are two distinct qualities. They're independent of each other, and both of them can be displayed and cultivated separately. So masculinity is not low femininity, it's high masculinity, and vice versa. Which also, and I guess is the bad news, right? Avoiding doing girly things or things that you think of as feminine doesn't make you more of a man. And I think it's actually not surprising that most people are confused about this, because I think it's quite normal that most people lack both. It's quite rare that someone has just healthy, strong masculinity or healthy, strong femininity. So I guess a lot of people, especially people who spend all their day commenting on videos, have just not experienced that in the real world. Number 3, the misconception that porn is somehow the solution to your dating problems. I mean, some of these are pretty rough, right? There's people who literally think that they need porn because they're single, or the worst version of this is the angry red pillar version who says, women are terrible, I'm single and I want to stay single because whatever, and I need porn, that's the alternative. So first of all, this is a victim mindset. You externalize the blame. You say, I don't have a problem, the problem is out there, and you keep yourself deluded. Because you can tell yourself, oh, once that external problem is solved, which it should be, and I'm very upset, then I will change. And of course you won't, because you're an addict. So even if the universe somehow provides you, with the last pure and good woman as a partner, guess what? You won't stop. you'll still watch porn, and watching porn will become a problem in your relationship. But in a way, this is two misconceptions in one, because what you also have to take into account is that if you would like to have a partner so that you can have sex in real life and not need porn anymore, well, watching porn makes it less likely that you actually achieve this and actually find a partner. Using porn a lot makes you less attractive in countless ways, and you can watch some of my other content to learn more about the details of this. So it makes you less attractive as a potential partner. And it's even worse if you fall into this angry red pill thing and you blame women and you're super entitled and so on. This just makes you someone that people don't want to date and have sex with. Next up is the misconception that porn makes you better at sex. And I don't think this could be any more wrong. Porn makes you worse at sex. It makes you much worse at sex. I could make a whole video about just why this is, and if you want to see that video, let me know, I can make it. But here's the short version. About 90% of what makes you a good lover as a man has to do with the mental and emotional side of it. It's all about how you make her feel, how you turn her on, how you create a container for her to feel relaxed and excited at the same time. It's only about 10% about what you do physically, right? So as a porn watcher, you think, oh, good sex is if I pound away at her for hours and I switch positions a lot. And that is very much not good sex. Really hope you're single, because I pity the woman who has to put up with your powerful combos that you got from porn. Next up, I got repeatedly told that what I'm saying can't be true because look at these porn stars. These porn stars are more manly than me, certainly. Now, it's interesting that you're paying so much attention to the male bodies in the porn you watch, but we won't dwell on that. So even if this point had any relevance, there would be at least one logical problem with it, which is that the porn stars are not watching porn, they're making it. So unless you show me all the, super manly, muscular porn watchers, I don't think this argument works. And apart from that, even though it's true that male porn stars tend to be brimming with testosterone, anyone care to guess how much of that testosterone comes from a syringe? Our next misconception is an analogy to food. So if I'm saying don't watch porn even if you feel sexual desire, is that like saying don't eat food even when you're hungry? This is actually accidentally a good analogy. You just have to think it all the way through. If you eat unhealthy junk food every time you feel hungry, what happens? You damage your health, and it gets worse and worse over time the longer you do it. Plus, you get addicted to junk food because it's habit forming. And finally, by stuffing yourself with junk food, you are lowering your desire for the real thing, because really what hunger is trying to get you to do is trying to get you to eat healthy, nutritious food. But because you're stuffing your face with donuts and cookies, you don't feel the desire for healthy food anymore. Porn is the junk food version of sex in exactly the same way. You have a drive, you have a quote-unquote hunger for real sex with a real person, with maybe even some kind of a romantic personal connection and all that kind of stuff involved. But instead, you're feeding yourself all this junk food in the version of porn. And the longer you do it, the stronger the habit becomes and the more catastrophic the consequences on your health. So congratulations to these commenters. They're essentially right, they just don't know it. Next up is a real simple one. I need porn to sleep. This is true for many people. It's the last thing you do in bed in order to fall asleep. And it feels like if you stop doing it, you don't know how to go to sleep. Sleep deprivation is very, very common in our culture, and it's definitely a problem that needs to be solved, but not with porn. You can learn how to get deep, restful sleep, and it's about changing your habits, changing light exposure, meal timing, and things like that, and generally just living a healthier life. Next up, there are many versions of this. Something like, watching porn helps people prevent cheating on each other, it helps prevent divorce, etc., etc. Now, first of all, data suggests the opposite of this. What's much more common is that someone's porn addiction is what eventually leads to relationship problems and maybe divorce. But also think of the implications of this. What you're saying is you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you're having problems. You maybe have the dead bedroom, right? You don't have a sexual connection anymore with your partner, and your solution is you're going to jerk into porn? No, you're going to try to work it out with your partner, you're going to talk to them, you're going to maybe go to therapy, you're going to try to work out your issues. No, you're just going to lock yourself in your room and jack it to some pixels on a screen. So yeah, don't take relationship advice from this guy. Next up, some version of I keep getting triggered on social media. It's not my fault that I keep watching porn because I scroll through social media, there's these thirst traps, and then what am I to do? Another example of victim mindset. It kind of makes me wonder if victim mindset is a consequence of porn. So once again, you're trying to blame something external so you feel better about your behavior. But first of all, it basically is your fault because your social media feed shows you the things that you respond to. So you've trained your social media feed to show you the things it shows you. But also, nobody's forcing you to use social media. Quitting porn is great for your mental health, and quitting social media along with it is even better. I know I sound like a real party pooper here. It's like, oh, we're not allowed to have fun. But really think about it. How often are you actually having fun using these things, and how often is it just compulsive? Another misconception is that I'm different. I'm the special exception. Maybe porn is bad for other people, but I'm still a manly man and I do great and I'm successful, etc., even though I watch porn. Look, we all like to feel like we're the main character surrounded by NPCs, but chances are you are mostly like other human beings. And of course, it's possible to be addicted to porn and be successful in other areas of life, but how much better would you be without that addiction? Next up, this is a spicy one and I can't show you most of these comments, but the gist of it is that porn prevents sexual aggression of various kinds. So in other words, if there wasn't porn, then more men would do sexually aggressive things. As far as I can tell, this is not true. In fact, it's probably the opposite, because there are studies that show that people who use porn a lot objectify other people, objectify women. And if you combine that, especially with this kind of angry red pill thing, where you're angry at women, you maybe become hateful towards them, you feel entitled to something that they're withholding from you, it seems to me that that would set you up to be more sexually aggressive than if you didn't have these problems and these attitudes to begin with. So personally, I'm doubtful of this one, but let me know if you have different thoughts in the comments. Next up, there were some other false dichotomies like the one we just looked at, where someone basically says, hey, the alternative to watching porn is something horrible. And STDs were mentioned, for example, right? The alternative to watching porn is I get all these horrible STDs and I die a horrible death. It's like, okay, but maybe you could also just have like reasonable, safe sex instead. And then finally, some version of porn helps me control myself. Maybe it helps me be calmer on a first date. It helps me be like less horny or less needy or something like that. And on the surface of it, that seems like, yeah, that could be right. Maybe you've been told like it's better to go on a date with post-nut clarity, for example. Now this maybe would be true if you weren't a porn addict. Because one of the things that porn addiction does is it makes you seek that sexual stimulus everywhere and all the time and more over time, right? You seek more and more stimulation. And a very common side effect of a regular porn habit is that you basically hypersexualize, right? You think about sex more often than you usually would. You sexualize other people more often than you usually would. So the impression you have of your sexual desire being this thing that you like need to keep a lid on is actually because you're a porn addict. All right, so those are the top 12 or 13 or whatever, I lost count, misconceptions in my viral TikTok video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. And if you have some others, or if you have questions about what I talked about, let me know by leaving a comment below. And then once you've done that, watch this video next.